This year, I've made about $30,000 in LinkedIn content sponsorships, which is not something I've ever thought I would say out loud.
It's buffer chat time, friends in our virtual studio and folks listening at home. A very warm buffery welcome. My name is Kirsty Lang. I am a senior writer at Buffer, and today we are talking about something that people may have differing opinions on, and that is okay. Before I get ahead of myself, the topic is what I'm calling the blurring of the lines between social media manager and creator. And there are so many paths we could go down with this, but I think we're kind of going to stick to, do social media managers need a personal brand or a presence on social? But it's okay. We're going to be fine. We talk about this nuanced topic because Jayde Powell is our in-studio guest, and she's going to hold my hand. She's going to virtually hold your hand, and everything's going to be okay. Jayde, thank you for hanging out today.
Hello, always excited to chat with you. How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I've got a lot of feelings to work through today on this topic, and I'm excited to be doing it with you. How are you doing?
I am great. I'm excited to work through these feelings because I've been working with them through my therapist.
It's one of
Excited to
those.
talk.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not that deep, but it is an interesting, it's an interesting
yeah.
discussion for sure. Um,
It's a topic that happens often, that comes in conversation often. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I feel like more so. But we're going to get into that before we go into the weeds together. For those who may not have come across Jayde's work, she is a content creator and marketer, the founder and head creative of the M-Co, a content and creative development agency, and the host of Creator Tea Talk, a LinkedIn audio series, which is a must watch, must listen,
Mhm.
one of those
Well,
things. Both. She has a substantial following across platforms, and in particular is one of my LinkedIn must follows. Jayde, did I miss anything? You have a lot going on.
thank you. I do have a lot going on, so that was
Yeah.
perfect and succinct. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, we're probably going to touch on that because I was hoping that we could just kick things off with a little bit more about you and your creator social strategist journey.
Absolutely. So I am Jayde Powell, and I am a content creator and a marketer. And that is something that I'm very proud of, to be working on both sides. But I got my start in marketing and advertising way back in 2013, where brands were still asking, what is the ROI of social media? And
Oh, wow. What a
yeah.
time.
What a time. I got my start working at an advertising agency, and then have since then kind of worked my way through the industry, both at agencies and in-house. And in 2021, I started my own agency where I do content and creative and social strategy. And in that same year, I decided I also wanted to be a creator myself. So I've been kind of doing both and navigating both lines. I am a creator and influencer, and I've also hired creators and influencers for social campaigns. So I think my perspective is unique in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. You are on both sides of the
Yeah.
trenches. But I think a lot of social media managers or strategists are finding themselves in that
Yeah.
place. And that is, yeah,
Absolutely.
if you're creating content for social and you're helping brands build a brand, it's very difficult to step away and then kind of be changing lanes and creating your own brand as well. So, I fully believe that this is the case. Like a good social media manager, it does not necessarily equate to the fact that they have a huge following themselves on social. I don't think those things are mutually inclusive. But I feel like the conversation is changing a little bit where, whether it's to get clients or because they love it or because it's something that just comes quite naturally to them, social media folks are building their personal brands as you're doing yourself, Jayde. But that's kind of what I want to get into. Do you agree with the idea, first of all, that a big following does not a good social media manager make?
I completely agree. It always kind of reminds me of that conversation between, like, what's the difference between an influencer and a creator? And I feel like
Oh,
that's
yeah, let's talk about that.
yes, I feel like that's one question. And then there's also the question, what's the difference between an influencer slash creator and a social media manager? So for influencer and creator, I always say that the difference is intention. An influencer is there to amplify a brand's product or services, and a creator is there strictly to create content. I always say that the role or responsibility of a creator, it's in its name. And same for influencer. Influencers influence, creators create. And with social media managers or social media professionals in general, whether that be a social strategist, social director, whatever that looks like, they are there to kind of be a channel marketer. They're using the channel of social media as a medium to help a brand grow its presence and ultimately promote its product or services. So I look at it as like a part of the larger marketing funnel. Whether within digital marketing, you have email marketing, you have your website, you have e-commerce, you might have paid advertising. Social is a part of that. And then within social, you just kind of have this realm of creator and influencer, which I feel like is why oftentimes those definitions or what those roles look like get a little muddled sometimes.
Yeah, and it makes sense that they do because I think, you can be a creator and be an influencer as well. And there are times when you'll kind of put that hat on for a certain brand, and shift for another. So it is confusing, but I love your definition. It's not like it's clear cut, but it also kind of allows some room for maneuver. That makes a lot of sense. And by that definition, then a social media manager is by default a creator, right?
Can be. Yeah. Can be. And I think it's like, and it's so kind of prescriptive because it really comes down to what your job is as a social media manager.
Mm,
I've worked in positions where my title as social media manager has literally meant manager of social accounts. And I've also had it mean manager of social media professionals. So it's like I'm
okay,
managing
yeah.
of social media professionals, or I could be managing an account. And when we think about what managing a social media account looks like, that looks different across brands, can be dependent on the type of company you're working for, what products or services, even what platforms you're choosing to grow on. So, as a social media manager, maybe I'm responsible for community management and publishing content, but maybe
Mm,
there's a in-house creative team that's developing all the content, so I don't have to.
absolutely.
I feel like that is kind of like the distinction that of what makes a social media manager also a creator or not.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's something that I hadn't considered in my blanket statement. Yes, I agreed. Yeah, okay, so I would love to talk a little bit more about how you stepped into that role as a creator. Was the initial goal kind of I've started my business and I need to market it?
Not necessarily, to be honest. I think it's interesting because when we think about the word creator now, it's very nuanced and people look at it in a certain way. So immediately, when I think when you say I'm a creator, people think TikTok videos. And in my opinion, content creation is kind of a very holistic field and can look very differently. Sometimes
Mm,
it could be like writing blogs, sometimes it could be podcasting, and oftentimes it's social media. But what I would say is that when I was thinking about my journey through social, I felt like it kind of naturally led up to me becoming a content creator slash
yeah.
influencer. Because in my work as a social, I was designing a lot of our content. When short form video became very popular, especially because of TikTok, I was creating short form videos. Not necessarily because I wanted to, it was just more so the part of the job that I'm doing. This is what I need to do. And it was funny because it wasn't until I was working as a head of social for a beverage brand in 2021 when I started bringing on creators and influencers for our own marketing campaigns. I was hiring them directly, looking down our feed and within our community, selecting them, managing their contracts, doing the negotiations, the
Yeah.
invoice,
Wow.
all
That's a
behind the
new
scenes.
skill set.
It is all of that behind the scenes work to kind of maintain the relationships with influencers. And as I developed those relationships with them, they honestly started inspiring me. I was like, wait, I too want to make money for creating content that's about me and not about the brands that I
Yeah.
work for. So I think once I realized I had that desire, it kind of led me into the path of creating and influencing.
Okay. And I love that because as I was asking you that question, I was like, because you needed to market your business. I was like, duh, Kirsty, that is the obvious answer. You've just literally answered your. So I love that you challenged that as well. That is fascinating. And the idea that you're creating because you love it as well is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. That's something that I feel too. In some ways, it like, whether it's creating short form videos or podcasts or YouTube, whatever it is, what we're doing now, it does kind of scratch an itch for me. And, I've always loved being creative and making things. And even though I'm kind of sat at my desk, I still feel like I'm creating.
And you are. And
Yeah.
one thing I will always say to other creators or people that want to be creators is for me, being a creator is the gateway drug, I call it, to entrepreneurship. A nice like little entry point because there's so many opportunities for us in this space. And the beautiful thing is you can create in the capacity that you want to. So even if you feel like I'm not someone that actually wants to be on camera, you don't have to be. If you
Yes.
feel like I'm not a strong writer, so I don't want to write a newsletter, you don't have to. There's so many avenues that you can tap into. It's more so just about harnessing your natural skill set and doing what you feel comfortable with and what you desire.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that ties in with what you said earlier. When people think creative, they think, oh gosh, I have to go make TikToks now. Not necessarily. There is so much space for you to be doing what comes most naturally to you. And I think a lot of folks, um, when they're building, a personal brand on LinkedIn, for example, I think that's a very good first step for someone in a social media role who's thinking, okay, I want to be building my personal brand now. Oh, I need to create 3 videos a week. No, to be consistent, you might create like 3 text-based posts a week, and that might be a much lighter lift, might be a much more comfortable place for you. So, yeah, I like that you touched on that distinction as well. And I think it's important to acknowledge that there are very different ways to go about this. So that kind of brings me to my next question is how do you find the time? Because I think this is the challenge for social media folks, the time and the energy actually, because I spend a lot of my day writing blog posts. I'm not going to sit down and write the book that I've been threatening to write because I've been writing all day and I'm tired. So, you've been creating all day for a brand and you're tired. How do you kind of take that step and be like, oh, this is Jayde's time?
I'm going to be honest, I had to scale back on the social media management side, actually. When I
Okay.
started up in my career and realizing I really wanted to make content creation and influencing more of a priority, I had to think about what my boundaries were going to be within work. And one of the biggest boundaries I established was like, I very adamantly decided that I would not be the social media professional that would be managing accounts. And I knew that just because I know the time and energy and investment it takes into managing social media accounts. So I was like, I'd rather focus on high level social strategy and also social creative direction rather than
Mm,
being the one that's in the accounts day to day. And also it was just for my mental health as well. Like I knew I couldn't possibly do both at the same time. It was just a lot.
makes
Um,
sense.
so that was one of the ways. And then also, I think I have gotten very strategic about how I use my time as a content
Mm,
creator as well. I do not pressure myself to overproduce. I let inspiration guide me, as fluffy as that sounds, and I use my time in that way. So when I have a moment of inspiration and I'm like, you know what, I want to create a video about this, or I want to write a text-only post about this, I'll write the idea down. And then when I get to my social media calendar, which I do have one, I was like, when I get to my social media calendar, I'll decide when I'm ready to create it. But what I do from that point is I set time on my calendar to actually go and create, whether that's like writing it out really quickly or actually scripting and filming my video. And I find that that helps me not feel so like flustered and tempted to
mm.
constantly produce, which I think is helpful.
Yeah, and kind of starting the day feeling like, what am I going to post today? That's, when you've kind of set yourself these ambitious goals,
Yeah.
that can be really rough.
Yeah, and I think going back to even what you were saying about like consistency, it's funny because I actually just created a video about this recently where
Yay.
the difference between consistency versus cadence. And I think one of the questions that I often get is, Jayde, how do you remain so consistent? And the thing about it is, like, I don't really. I mean, it's like I do, but I don't. I focus on consistency in terms of my quality, my output, what people can expect, what is familiar, and then my tone and my style. But in terms when it comes to cadence, that's completely up to you. I feel like, there's people who are like, in order to grow on Instagram, you need to post a reel once a day. And I personally don't believe in that because that doesn't align with my lifestyle. Not something you'll find me doing per se, but that's not to say it's wrong. I just know that I would quickly burn out if that was my cadence. So I choose not to have that cadence.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. Yeah, I think the issue of burnout is when people, will set themselves these lofty goals of, right, I'm a creator now, I'm a social media manager, I'm managing 5 brands or whatever the case is, I'm in the comments, thoughts and prayers. And then, then you've got to kind of recreate the same output that you would hold yourself to for a brand. I think that is a potential pitfall that you might fall into as a social media manager. Oh, I'm posting, I've seen success posting every single day on this platform. So I need to, in order to achieve that success, I need to do that myself. But maybe you don't.
And that's the tea. You don't. It sounds so simple, but I think even especially in my experience coming from the world of social media management where you're so hyper focused on output versus like as a creator, I'm kind of going at my own pace. I've really had to kind of manage that because I find myself in modes where I'm like, okay, this week I'm gonna post a video and it's like, girl, take a step back because literally no one told you to do that. So relax. And I have to kind of give myself like checks and balances in order to
Mm.
like not feel this pressure that I'm ultimately putting on myself to overproduce because again, no one asked for that.
Yeah, and there is a special kind of burnout, I think. I don't know, Jade, if you've ever felt this when it comes to creating your own content, especially if it involves, kind of sharing your experience and stories and anecdotes and making videos of yourself, which it probably does, or it should. That can be quite draining, kind of giving of yourself. Yeah, is that something you felt?
Oh, for sure. Many a time. I feel like that's why I started talking to my therapist about my work in social because it can be very draining, especially when you have the expectation of being a social media pro. You're so plugged in all the time. And then to then go use it for your own personal use, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think, again, the boundaries have been really important for me as I've moved through my career because I know that being so tapped in is a part of the work, but I also know that it's not like the most healthy for my mind, my spirits, physical health, all of that. So it's funny because lately I've been really in like a how do I kind of redefine what health and wellness looks like for me in my day-to-day life
Mm.
so I can best take care of myself. And sometimes that really means like putting my phone down. And I know that's hard for a lot
Usually
of
does
us.
mean that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
me too.
I find it very challenging for a lot of us to keep that phone away. So like even when I go on walks, I'll like leave it in my car. Or if I don't leave it in my car, I keep it in my pocket so I'm not tempted to scroll while I'm walking.
Yeah.
Or we started taking sound bowl classes, which you can't use your phone.
I love
So it's
that.
it's like having hobbies basically. Do things outside of work.
Yeah, it's so funny because kind of creating becomes your hobby when it's your side project or your hustle. So it's very difficult to actually step away from that. That makes a lot of sense. I have this great hack. So a lot of if you have an iPhone, a lot of folks don't know this, but you can go and set like downtime for specific apps. So my apps, there are certain apps on my phone that turn off after 9:30. This is why, Tammy, if you're listening, this is why you don't see me on Slack late at night anymore. You should also try this. Um, but yeah, so those apps turn off. And because there is also a difference between creating and consuming can also be very draining. And that I find it's funny because some ways I find that scrolling does inspire me sometimes and I get some great ideas and other times it drains me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a weird social media is a weird place sometimes.
And I think you make a very valid point because it can also be scary. Sometimes I catch myself, I'm like scrolling so much, and then an hour has passed, and I'm like,
Yes,
where did I just go? You don't even realize it.
it's crazy. Yeah.
It is. So I think finding that balance is incredibly important. Like it's a must.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, reeling it back in. Sorry, I've gone down rabbit holes as I do. Jayde, what have the benefits been for you of actively being, a personal brand creator and, having your own business as well?
Yeah, it's been interesting because I think once I realized I really wanted to invest in my personal brand, there was like a switch where I was like, okay, everything that I've learned about social media management and social media marketing that I've applied for all these other brands that I've worked for or I've worked with, I'm now going to do for myself. And
Mm.
that is a unique challenge because
Yes.
it's like you're not just doing it for someone else now, you're doing it for yourself. And I
Mm.
think for a lot of people that could sound easy, but it's actually harder, in my opinion, because it's like, it's not like someone is handing me like a corporate communications plan and then this is how we talk about our brand voice. I'm like, this is just me figuring out myself in real time. And then my
Yeah.
content is obviously a reflection of me. Um, but it's been interesting because in the past year or two that I've been growing across my social media channels and especially LinkedIn, I think what it has given me in terms of benefits is access and opportunity, which is incredible. And I have noticed like the change. I've been able to speak at conferences. I got invited to speak at Adweek Social Media Week earlier this year, which is like not an opportunity I think I would have had I not had a social presence, to be honest. I've gotten brand partnerships through LinkedIn sponsored content or being invited to events. I got invited to attend an event with Threads a couple of months ago. Like these kind of fun opportunities, I just don't think I would have had otherwise just being a social media professional alone. I think the amplification of a personal brand and having reach across my channels helps. So influencing works, guys.
And it's opened up a new route to monetization for you as well.
Absolutely. This year, it's actually really exciting because this year I've made about $30,000 in LinkedIn content sponsorships, which is not something I've ever thought I would say out loud, but it kind of reminds me like back in 2016 when I had my first job in advertising, that was my salary, which is crazy. So I'm like, wow, growth.
Oh my
So
gosh,
it's
that's
pretty
amazing. That's first of all, as a buffer person, buffer teammate, I've lost my words because I'm just excited. We love the transparency, appreciate that. That is so, so cool. Yeah, I love how transparent you are about like the ins and outs of being a creator and influencer on social. That's an aside, definitely go and follow Jayde if you're interested in learning the ins and outs of exactly what goes into these partnerships because she is phenomenal for that content. Okay, so coming back to, there is a social media manager out there, hopefully, who is listening to this or watching this and thinking, great, that sounds cool. What now?
I would say, I always say this, just post the content. Think about like what you want to be known for, whether it's marketing or anything that you're interested in outside of your work. So maybe you love to roller skate, maybe you love gardening. Think about what you want to post about, what you want to be known for, and then just start creating content. I think over time things will fall into place, but you won't know what you want to post about, how you want to post, what your own cadence or consistency looks like until you actually start posting. So I would say just pick a channel and run with it. Very similarly to the way that we do social strategy or social media management for brands, just again, apply it to yourself. But I would say don't think so critically about it. Like this is supposed to be something that is supposed to be really fun and enjoyable and feels natural to you because it is an extension of who you are. So pick your platform of choice or your medium of choice, whether that be newsletter, social, email, whatever, and just get to posting. And then over time, things will fall into place accordingly.
Just get to posting. That is it. That's that's the tea. Okay, I love that. Jayde, I'm going to be exceptionally cheeky and put you on the spot with a question that is semi-related to this, unrelated to this. What are your social media trends? Give me like one thing that you're predicting for 2025.
Okay, I'm going to be annoying and say similarly to what I've already alluded to. LinkedIn influencing is the wave, and I'm going to say it right here, right now, because it's not a space that I feel people take as seriously yet. But I can tell just being a creator on the platform and also kind of secretly watching LinkedIn employees, they're going to be investing a lot more resources and energies into getting creators on the platform. I outside of marketing, when I talk to people and tell people I create on LinkedIn, they're always like, "What? Since when do creators exist on LinkedIn?" And in my opinion, it's not that new of a space, but it is slowly kind of building. So I will say in 2025, we're going to see a lot more brands partnering with LinkedIn influencers and creators, especially more brands that people are more familiar with. This year, I saw that Lyft did a partnership with a couple of creators and influencers on LinkedIn. And I think we're going to see more brands and kind of Lyft's era start tackling the space. So you heard it here first.
I love that. Yes. I mean, I had one sponsored post as like a very, very nano creator. I even had a brand reach out to me. It was very
I
exciting.
love that.
Like me spending like 10 years building up my Instagram. Nobody cares. LinkedIn, people care. People care. Although that Instagram story, there's a lot of nuance there. That is for another day. Okay. So Louise is asking a question. Jayde, what is your go-to tool as a content creator?
I'm a Canva girly through and through. I love Canva down. Canva is like literally one of my favorite platforms, and I've just been able to build so much there as a creator and as a marketer. I just feel like it's like a multi-purpose tool. And it's funny because I know some like people in the design world, creative world of advertising, they're like, I don't take Canva seriously because everyone thinks they can be a designer. But I don't even look at it that way. I think it just empowers creators to be more self-sufficient. I personally just did a whole art board in Canva for a client I'm working on, and they were very impressed. So I would say Canva is that girl, and I'm manifesting my partnership with them by speaking it out loud.
Yeah, for their LinkedIn campaign. That's definitely happening in 2025. Canva, if you're listening, Jayde is ready. Jayde is ready. We don't have any more questions in the chat. Jayde, is there anything else that you think that we have missed in the conversation about social media managers and creators that is worth mentioning?
I would say, and I this is something I've mentioned before, I just want to see brands invest more time, energy into their social media teams. Like long gone are the days of the social media manager team of one or social media management team of one. And that's just unacceptable. No more. We need to have full, well-staffed teams that are paid well so that we can do what we need to do on social. If you want to have a strong social media presence, invest the time, energy, and resources to do
I love
it.
that. That makes so much sense. And something that I have has just dawned on me that is a really good kind of point to add to this conversation is that if you're building just something that you mentioned as well, you were like, hey, you were working with influencers and creators to like promote the brands you were working on. Like, I can do this. And if you are that in-house person building your personal brand, you are another channel. You become another channel for your business, right? Even if you're an in-house person. Yeah, and that's something that we're also leaning into at Buffer as well. The whole marketing team, we're on LinkedIn a lot.
And you know what? You brought up a good point. 'Cause I know we're closing, so I'll just say this really quickly. But
We can hang out.
remember that you can do both at the same time as well. It's not an either an or either or, because employee influencers are a thing as well. And I know some
Yes.
brands are investing into employee advocacy, and influencing internally is still just as valuable. So keep that in mind if you really love your job.
I love that. That's my trend prediction for 2025. Nobody asked, but that's what I'm saying. I'm
That's
putting
actually a
my
great
stake in the ground. There's my flag. Okay. Jayde, it has been wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I appreciate you. I know you have tons going on. We're going to put all your links in the caption, in the show notes, but where if folks are like, I need to find Jayde right this instant, is LinkedIn the
Yeah.
best place?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Jayde I. Powell with a Y, and you can subscribe to my newsletter. I have a link in my LinkedIn bio as well. It's called Creator Tea Talk Loose Leaf Newsletter, and you can subscribe there. That's where I provide a lot of resources for upcoming creators and influencers who want to make a business out of creating. So, yeah.
Amazing. Perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Jayde. If you are listening or watching and you enjoyed this, you found it valuable, we have more on the way. And also, I mean, I'm just going to say it. I may have to edit this out, but maybe someone from the LinkedIn team will be joining us soon to tell us insider secrets about like so with all the predictions that we've had, that feels like a fitting thing to mention. So do keep an eye on Buffer's channels for that. Go follow Jayde right this instant. The end.
Thank you.